Hello, good to have you back for another classic film review. Now, the best way to describe this film is important. It's from a very important director, it's from a very important period in film history, and equally from a very important period in German cinema history as well. For all serious fans of the cinema, it's a must-see film. The film is Fritz Lang's M from 1931. It's been very influential. It uses some very interesting and creative camera techniques at a time when cameras were very big and very clunky. It also, for the first time in film, uses voiceover as a technique, which again has been used subsequently on many, many occasions. It also came at the very early days of sound cinema, especially in Germany. At that stage, using sound equipment was very expensive. So in an effort to save money, a third of this film is actually silent. Now, that was a happy accident because Fritz Lang found that the silence in this film is actually very powerful. And he used it a lot more as a result of realizing what an effective technique it was. And again, this is something that's lasted through cinema history. Modern filmmakers use silence to great effect as well. The other innovation is that for the first time in cinema, the director actually used music to foreshadow the arrival of a character. Now, when Peter Lorre's character appears on screen, Edvard Grieg's Peer Gynt Suite No. 1 plays. It's a technique known as leitmotif, and that's, again, a technique that's continued on with contemporary filmmakers as well. The original title for this film was The Murderers Are Among Us. It was changed to M. Some people believe it was because Lang was concerned about the Nazis and what they might think about the title. But the truth, though, is during the course of making the film, there's a scene where one of the criminals actually writes M on the palm of his hand. That's an image which is used in a lot of the promotion for the film. It's something that Lang found very powerful, and as a result, he changed the title of the film to M. The film does depict a very sour vision of contemporary life in Germany. Lang at the time was clearly quite concerned about things. He was Jewish. He was concerned about the rise of the Nazis in Germany, and he was perhaps more concerned about the fact that his wife had recently joined the Nazi Party. Now, the Nazis weren't a fan of this film. They came to power in 1933, and within a year they banned the film. Now, interestingly, Joseph Goebbels, who was the head of propaganda for the Nazis, thought this was a wonderful film. He described it as fantastic, free of phony humanitarian sentiments. Now, on the strength of this film, Goebbels offered Fritz Lang a job, working as their primary filmmaker, a job that Lang subsequently declined. This film is in some ways based on historical events. While Fritz Lang denies that the film is about a man known as the Vampire of Dusseldorf, Peter Kürten, whose crimes in the 1920s shocked Germans, there is a lot to suggest that the film is based in many ways on those events and on that man's life and his exploits. Lang and his wife, Theodor von Haubauer, who was the co-writer on the film, did spend some time researching the crimes involved in those particular events. He also spent some time visiting murder scenes. He interviewed sex offenders in prison. And Lang actually spent 8 days living in a mental asylum to try and better understand or better develop the characters for this particular film. Fritz Lang was a very influential director. He was also someone who was very difficult to work with. He was really quite cruel to his actors. And he was also someone who had very poor eyesight. He had fought in World War I, and he was injured quite severely on 4 occasions. And as a result, he lost the sight in his right eye. He made a film called Metropolis from 1927, which again, you'd be probably quite familiar with. He also made a film called Woman in the Moon in 1929. Now, interestingly, both of those films were commercial failures, and after that, Lang seriously considered giving away filmmaking. But one of his well-resourced admirers talked him out of that and actually offered to finance his next film. Now, this was Fritz Lang's first sound film. It's also, by his account, the favourite of the films that he made. The other important element in this film is the actor Peter Lorre. Prior to this film being made, he was an unknown. He had spent a lot of time travelling around Europe in a number of different countries, playing in all sorts of different productions, mostly comedic ones. He was a comedy actor. And really, being cast in this film changed his life. It changed his career as well. Now, Peter Lorre was also Jewish. He was also very, very nervous about the rise of the Nazis, and pretty much at the time that this film was released, he left Germany. He moved on to Paris and then England, and then subsequently in 1935 made his way to Hollywood, where he had quite a fabulous career. He made some really, really good films in the 1940s, films like The Maltese Falcon and Casablanca. This film was shot very quickly in only 6 weeks, but it has a very real feel to it. So it's shot in some very grimy, grungy locations. Also, Lang chose to cast a number of actual criminals in a number of the minor roles. And during the course of the filming, 24 of his cast were actually arrested for different crimes and dragged away. For the film's re-release, a number of changes were made. Music was added to try and fill in some of those silent bits. Some scenes were cut. Also, it was made in a very unusual aspect ratio. So for the re-release, the image was expanded and it was actually cropped at the top and the bottom. What has also happened is the film has gone into the public domain, and when that happens, films are often reproduced, often from poor copies. So when you're looking for copies of this film, you'll often find, grainy pictures, poor sound quality, poor picture quality, and a whole bunch of different editing decisions. When the film was released on Blu-ray in 2009, it was restored to its original state. So again, if you're looking for a very authentic version of the film, look for it on Blu-ray from 2009. This film is lauded by many, many people. So Premiere Film Magazine voted it as one of the 25 most dangerous movies. It was ranked number 13 for non-English speaking films by BBC's Critics Poll. It is one of the 1001 movies that you must see before you die. It's one of Roger Ebert's must-see films, and the Association of German Cinematiques says it is the most important German film ever made. So for serious fans of the cinema, for me, this is a must-see film. You can certainly go to our website, follow the link, watch the film. You may well find it's not the optimal version. If you're looking for the optimal version, as I said, hunt it down on Blu-ray. Watch this film. When you've seen it, come back, leave some comments, let us know what you think, and then hopefully we'll see you again for another Classic Films review.